Hi everybody, welcome to another Tip Tuesday. My name is Henry Arth. Welcome back. Today I wanted to walk you through some configuration options and my personal recommendations for setting up printer routing through for your IndySoft single user system. So if you're using TechSync, perhaps if you don't have this configured in a specific way, you've noticed that every week when you pull in a new database, as we basically recommend that you do, that maybe your printer routing options are getting overwritten or they get lost or they just seem to be inconsistent. So I'm going to give you a couple of different scenarios of what you need to do. So let's just go ahead and dive in. The first thing that you need to do is actually not open up your single user, but instead you need to log in to your multi-user system, which would either be through your cloud login, so online, or it would be your local on-premise installation. Log in as yourself into that main system. Once you've done that, you can go to your user location settings, which I'm sure that you are already aware of. That's where you would actually do this normally on the single user. And then go down to your printer routing. Now, in printer routing, we have a few different ways to kind of set this up. Option one, let's say that you are only going on site, okay, and you don't ever work in the multi-user instance. You never work on the online mode or on the on-premise installation. In that case, we have a simpler path forward. So what we can do, you can see at the top here, username is IndySoft. The location by default is the default location. That's fine. You can keep that as it is right now because that's out of box. That's what everybody uses. Okay, so whichever printer that you need to select, whether it's printer 1 or 2, however you normally do your routing, just make sure you're pointing that, and then you're going to select your printer name. Now, if you're in the cloud instance and you do not see your printer name when you do this, that makes sense. You would need to use WebTier tools. You would actually need to use WebTier tools specifically, but just note that whatever your printer is, so let's say I wanted to point to my P-Touch 9700 and it's not listed here. Not the end of the world. You just need to type that in exactly as it would appear on your single user system. So we're going to type in PT-9700 and press save. Now, this will not get pushed down to your single user instance today necessarily. When it is going to get pushed down is after the beginning of the next week. So let's say it's a Thursday and I save this on my multi-user instance, right? I should not expect to see this until I pull in a new starter database the following week. That starter database gets created on Saturday night, Sunday morning. That's when all these newly saved options will actually get pushed into your starter database, and then it will come down to your single user workstation, and once you create a new one there, that's when this setting will actually come in. So if you're only working on the single user workstation, just make sure you type this in exactly as it needs to be, or have it set up. If you have like a local client installer or anything like that, you can definitely set it up that way and point to it. But that's pretty straightforward. For a lot of folks out there, though, they are going to be working not just from the single user system, but from both. And so maybe on your multi-user system, you want to use a specific printer, but when you go on the road, when you're using the single user, use a different kind of setup, okay? In that scenario, what I'm going to advise you to do is a little bit more complicated. So very similarly to what we just did, you want to be able to and should be opening up your multi-user instance, whether it's on the web or whatever, and you pop in here. And the first thing I'm going to have you do actually is not select the printer that you want, but I'm going to have you create a brand new location. Now, the location allows you to have basically different settings that you can employ in different scenarios, right? So if you are at workstation A, then you can have your printer that is at the workstation A. Workstation B, you have its different printer that you would automatically be routed to. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new location. You can call this whatever you want, but I'm going to say you can call it on-site or you can call it single user. Okay, and I'm going to press OK. Those settings will come down from your default from your default location settings. Whatever you are making it from, it will copy it from. So once I have that location made, then I can go in here and I can say, all right, printer one, it's actually not the P-Touch 9700, it's the PT 8100. I'm making up names right now, but that's okay. So now, once I save that, I've actually got a location which uses the PT 8100 at the single user, and then the default, which is what I access on the actual server side. I use that there. So let's just go ahead and make sure that I've got that set. So 9700, and once again, go to single user. Now this could apply for any other setting that you might need, just so you know, but printing tends to be the most common issue here that we see when people don't have it set up in a very specific way. So now what we're going to do is, again, this isn't going to get pushed out until, the following week, right? So what you can do in the meantime is go to your single user. So I'm going to go ahead and access mine locally. Let me find it here and go ahead and log in. And let's see here. I have a few test scripts in there. So once you get in there, you would set it up just like you normally do. You'd go to your user locations for your TechSync database, right? And you would come in here and you would say, all right, and I've actually got a few other locations that I deleted, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. You don't need to do that because you won't have these necessarily yet. And when I pop in here, my printer routing, it's not pulling in anything right until the following week. So what I can do in the meantime is go ahead and make my location locally as well. So exactly as you typed it into the multi-user system, you can add that new location here. And then you can pop in the exact same PT-8100 for that single user location, okay? Now what you're going to notice though is that when I logged in here, I don't know if you just saw that action there, when you log into your single user workstation for the first time, it's always going to go to the default location. So when I say default, I mean actually the word default, right? So once I log in, I then have to remember to maybe click on this and then go to my single user location. Well, how do we get rid of that so that it's just automatically going there? What you can actually do in the single user workstation is go into your installation directory under your IndySoft single user setup there and go to your database settings. Database settings will give you, and this is kind of confusing the way that I'm phrasing this, but the database settings are actually going to give you an option to set a default location that is not just the actual default location. You pop in here and you can see what your database you're accessing or whatever, but the default workstation location is actually down here. So if I type in single user, okay, from the single user workstation, and I press OK, then whenever I actually go back and log into the system, and I'll have to log out in order to get you there. It looks like we're on our way here. I'll log in as the exact same user. And I obviously don't have this, but you can see my P-Touch 8100 is exactly the printer that I want to see. And you can also see that system administrator at single user is going to pop in there. So no matter if I change mine to a different location from the single user now, every time I log into this workstation, it's going to inherit that particular location and give me those exact settings that I need. So you really need to add the location to the multi-user side, and then for that current week, you can add the location to the single user side or do whatever you need to do. And then from there on out, it will always inherit that and always choose the correct location for your single user. So thanks so much for your time again, and happy calibrating.